Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, or everyone, wherever you find yourself watching our AMAC 360 virtual roundtable. My name is Ramon Lowe. I'm the Director of Membership and Industry Engagement for the Airport Minority Advisory Council. We're going to give folks a few seconds to come in from the waiting room. I know that this isn't for me, it's really for our panelists, but we had a lot of folks who registered to attend today. So we want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity to kind of get in the room. Just so you know, we are recording, and what we'll be doing is after this session, sometime next week, we will post this on our YouTube channel and distribute it through our LinkedIn page, etc. So you can definitely make sure to watch it there. But you know what? It's not as good watching it recorded as it is watching it live. So that's why we're here. And anyway, enough blathering on from me. I'm going to get started now because I know we're all busy people, and it is a Friday, as Penny May had mentioned when we were doing our pre-interview. So once again, my name is Ramon Lowe. I'm the Director of Membership and Industry Engagement for AMAC. This is AMAC 360. This is our monthly virtual roundtable series where we invite a number of subject matter experts from both inside and sometimes outside of our industry to tackle any number of topics. And before I get into our panel and the reason why we're all here today, I just want to make a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. So first and foremost, you heard it. I'm the Director of Membership, so I have to say it. If you haven't renewed your membership, please do so. We've been sending a number of notices the last few months, and you want to make sure that you do not miss out because we have a number of events, both virtual and in person, that are coming out that have happened actually in the first quarter already and will be coming up the rest of the year. So you do not want to miss it. I mentioned AMAC 360, Legends and Leapers, etc. But you know what? We've also had a lot of member-only events that you definitely want to be a part of. So one of the benefits, of course, joining a chapter, we have 7 of them at the moment. These chapters are extremely busy at the moment, and they are developing some really interesting and compelling programs and events for the coming year. Again, you need to be a national member in order to join a chapter so that you can kind of make sure that you take part in a lot of their events. One example, our Detroit chapter under the leadership of Lori Ballard, they hosted a virtual airport opportunity session, and they had 3 airports, Cleveland, Detroit, and Grand Rapids, and they were all on the architecture, engineering, construction side. But the total dollar amount of contracts that they went over was about 60 million or so. And so we are doing a lot more of those with our chapters and here at National Office to make sure that they are a service to you. So make sure you join a chapter. And last but not least, what we refer to as our Super Bowl, our annual Airport Business Conference. It's going to be June 28th to July 2nd in New Orleans. So thank you to Kevin Dolio and the team at New Orleans for being a wonderful partner. You want to make sure that you are renewed or a member so that you can get the best discount when you sign up to attend this conference. Again, you can go to our events page and look up our Airport Business Conference link and see all the sponsorship opportunities available, as well as register to attend. Now, you need to register first before you get a link to reserve your room. So, and rooms do go quick. And if you were not aware, we are right on the eve of Essence Fest in New Orleans. So that just means that there's very little inventory, or inventory will go quickly. So make sure you register and reserve your room. So with that, we'll get to our panelists for today. If you were not aware, March, broadly titled, is Women's History Month. And for us, obviously, for our relevance, we wanted to recognize 3 executives who have been leaders in the aviation space. So I wanted to feature and really reach out to some folks who are extremely talented, respected, far knowledgeable than myself, of course, within industry, and I believe we have that panel today. So not only do they share all those traits in common, but they also happen to be in climates far colder than where I am in South Florida. So that's another thing that they share. So depending on how you see where everyone is oriented, I will introduce our panelists now. Jaimini Erskine is the VP of Marketing and Concessions for the Metropolitan. I'm just going to say MWAA, Jaimini, MWAA, because I've been talking.
Okay.
Ms. Penny May is the Chief Commercial Officer for Denver International Airport, and Isabella Rhawie is the VP Commercial Revenue Officer for Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ramon.
Excellent. So let's bust into it because one of the easy things that I like to ask as we wade gently into the cold end of the pool or the shallow end of the pool is what brought you into this a wonderful aviation industry? I can't imagine that when you were in your careers that you just let off and saying, you know what, I want to get into airports, or maybe you did. And we'll start with Penny on this one.
I wish I could say I was always headed to aviation, but the reality is the airport is a city agency and was creating a deputy chief of staff position. And I was approached about taking that position. I was actually downtown at the time in the mayor's office, and I thought it was something new and thrilling, and why wouldn't I try it? And one of the best moves I've ever made.
Isabella?
Mine was a fateful phone call that I received when I was working for the Mall of America, actually, which is funny enough, just down the street from the airport. But I was working in the marketing department and doing some short-term leasing there, and I get a call from, and a lot of people on this call will know her, Miss Liz Jacobiak. She called me one day out of the blue and said, "Hey, we heard about you, and I have this retail manager position available, and I'd love for you to apply." And I had never even considered or thought about a career in aviation. I didn't even know how the airport worked or um, how concessions even came into the airport. And so I was really nervous about it. And I applied and I ended up taking the job. And to Penny's point, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it was totally by evolution. I started my career in hospitality. I actually worked for Marriott Corporation when I first right after college, and and at the time they were going through a company split, and they were doing all these spin-off companies. And one of the spin-off companies was Host Marriott Services, which today is known as HMS Host. And as the evolution of the split was happening is when I was kind of evolving into some of the other positions. And I came on kind of temporarily, you know, in the legal department, and then I ended up moving over into the aviation sector. And it was the full transportation sector. It was travel plazas and, you know, just a assortment of things, including aviation. And so I found it really fascinating. And so once I stayed in it and then really learned from it, I just kind of growed from there. And I was with HMS Host for 10 years, just doing that side of the business. And it was really fascinating for me. That just this aspect of it is so different, but it was just a sector that I never thought I would ever get into.
So I can't ask you how you got in without first saying, you know, what I should have asked, you know, what was your intended career path, whether it was something that you're already on the path towards or something that you kind of envisioned for yourself. Because I want to compare and contrast where we are now versus where you thought you were going to be or what you wanted to do. And we'll go with you, Penny, on that one.
I'm not sure there is a direct comparison, but I went to school to be a mortician.
All right. That escalated quickly. Okay.
And I actually thought that would be my lifelong profession.
So I have to ask, what, okay. So what was the draw, I should say?
To the mortuary business,
Sure.
it was just something I felt I could do. It's a service industry. I don't get very squeamish, so my father had a very large family, and because of that, we actually were attending services at a young age, and I just believed I could do it, and so off I went to school, and I thought I would be in that field for the rest of my career.
Well, there is some job security in that, I guess. And so, because there's the inevitability of like, you know, that and taxes, I guess. So, all right. So, Penny, I'm going to put a notch on that for the first time that mortician has come up. It's funny because like, I'm sorry that for a second, the last, I had Frederick Estes on in February we featured a lot of small business. Isabel, you know, Frederick. So, his family business was in funeral homes. And that's where his lineage, which was really interesting. Then he found himself into the airport. So anyway, Isabella, how about you?
Well, I actually wanted to go to law school. And I worked at a law firm for 5 years, and I discovered that I really missed the human interaction part of the job. And I have a very lengthy work experience in sales and retail specifically. And so I decided to shift gears once I was done with my 5 year stint at the law firm. And I still think about what life would have been like if I had gone to law school, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. So no regrets.
Jaimini?
Yeah, I actually officially came full circle. And so my undergrad degree was in marketing. But when I started working in hospitality for Marriott, I ended up in the legal department. And then I thought I was going to kind of go into law school after that, become a lawyer for for hospitality. And I hit kind of a crossroad at that point in time. And I said, well, either I can go to law school or I can go get my MBA. And I said, let me go get my MBA. And that actually set the course for me to say, it's not going to be law, it's going to be business. And I think because I think I have more of a business savviness than legal, but I know how to read contracts. So that's a big plus, and that's a big component of just the business world. And so I went on to, having jobs as being like in a business development position, et cetera. And then as I evolved, from like the private sector to the public sector and came on the airport side, I went through, managing commercial, to all the revenue to, where I am today, which is back to marketing. And I'm overseeing marketing again and the business component from the concession side. So it's a little full circle for me.
So for everyone in the audience, if you're not aware, I do give the panelists some outline or some structure of things that we want to talk about. So this is going to be one of the first times where I'm going to have to take a little bit of a detour, so don't get too nervous. Something you said though, Jaimini, struck, and you kind of answered what I was going to follow up with, which is your intended path or the career that you were intending to get into. What could you take from that you're actually applying now? And you mentioned it, you learned to read contracts, and which is extremely important. Seems boring, but it's extremely important, I'm sure. But
Absolutely.
what else have you taken from what would have been your intended path? If it was a skill, doesn't necessarily mean a hard skill, but some sort of skill that you're kind of applying now. And we'll start with you, Jaimini.
Yeah, so I think that's a great example, right? So I was able to understand contracts, read about contracts, understand just the legal components, because even as you're going into, the airport side or, understanding like the ACDBE rules, right? That was something also that I was like, okay, well, I need to understand what this is. And so a lot of the background that I have from just understanding business in general, understanding some of the legal components, what are the things to look out for, really started to set the stage for me. And every job that I've had actually contributed to everything that I continued to learn. And it's weird because you always wonder like, what's, how am I, why am I learning about this? Or why, what is this coming up? What does this have to do with anything? Right. And some component always has, I always go back to, wow, if I hadn't taken that course or had not taken that seminar or went to that, conference, I would not have learned about this to be able to be prepared for what I'm doing today. And so it's kind of like a, melting pot of things where anytime you have the ability to learn something new, learn it, because you never know where you're going to apply it again. And so I've been kind of doing that over the course of the time, from the legal stuff that I focused on, the business aspects of understanding, how to negotiate. I think I took a class in negotiating as well, and that's also helped me along the way. And so it's really every point and every type of thing that you're going to learn somehow you have to be able to apply it to what you're doing in your current career, right? So it's always an opportunity. I've always seen these as opportunities.
And concept development, Jaimini. Remember that?
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely. I mean,
remember San
that's a
Diego.
big
So.
aspect too. I think I had evolved in my career with Host, in doing different aspects too, from some of the business development stuff that they did to concepting work to adult beverage marketing. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I learned even there that I can apply today. So it was all important for me.
So Isabella, you said the legal, you want to go to law school. I'm sure that lines kind of like what Jaimini mentioned. You also have a, part of a family business as well, that your family is into. So did you draw on anything of those for using it towards what your career is now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of similar sentiment as Jaimini. Everything she said, I was like, yep, yep, yep. I totally get what you're saying, and I feel the same. Uh, I say this all the time. I feel really, it's a double-ended sword. So I feel very fortunate that I grew up in a family business, because I wore all the hats that you can possibly imagine. I was, buffing the jewelry. It's a jewelry business, if I didn't mention that. To buying the POS system, to being the marketer. I mean, anything and everything that had to be done, I did. And that just helps you develop skills, and not just the hard skills, but being able to speak to customers. I almost said passengers, customers, when they come into the store, and learning how to connect with people and get them to trust you, when they're making big decisions. People are spending a lot of money when they come into a jewelry store. Those are all life skills that have definitely spearheaded my career, and just being able to be where I'm at today. I mean, I feel very fortunate. Now, if you had asked me 20 years ago, when I was working at the store every single night after school, I was not a happy camper. I was very angry at my parents for it, but in hindsight, it was actually a good thing. So yeah, I still, it's funny, I still work at the store like once in a blue moon, and I actually enjoy it. I actually enjoy talking to customers, and the critical thinking part of it. What can I do to garner revenue and sales? And so also when I'm in my job, here at the airport, and I'm speaking to the business owners, I have a lot of understanding of where they're coming from. I can speak to them on that level because I've been there, I've done it. I know where they're at. So it's helped me tremendously.
All right, Penny, I've been trying to buy myself some time to see how we can apply skills or the mortician. I would think exacting, very, very particular, meticulous, I would say, right? Or maybe there's something else that you could think of.
No, exactly that. And dealing with people in a wide range of emotion
Mm.
over the course of the time that you're serving a family. I think those are all skills you bring forward. Every family's different. But also, I couldn't agree more with my peers here on the panel. It's always a learning moment. And once I pivoted to public service from that field, I just kept building on those skills. And you have opportunities to learn more in different agencies and how you're serving the public, and the interactions, and somehow it all melds together, and we built these amazing careers. I don't have any regrets at all. I often tell people I've had the best unplanned career I could have imagined.
Mhm.
Well, it's a lot livelier, at least.
It depends.
True. That is true. That's true. All right, I'm gonna sunset some of the jokes now. But so the way I like to look at things, especially when we look at our careers, or especially where we are now from when we started, we're obviously a collection of not just of our experiences, but we've been shaped by the people that have been in our lives, mentors, or just, again, it doesn't even have to be directly a mentor. Some of the most not purposeful, some of the most like accidental relationships that we've had, at least for me, provided some great learning. So I just want to ask each and every one of you, maybe was there someone in your life that kind of like impacted you from a personal, professional standpoint, to help make you who you are now? And again, it could be one moment in time, this person said this, or this person's still in my life, and he or she is kind of like my kitchen cabinet of sorts, when I need advice. So who would that be for you, Penny?
Uh, well, it's just so many people, because at different times there are voices that come to us that really provide, whether we know it or not, the guidance we need at that moment in time that you carry forward. So I think first and foremost, it would be my parents who, told me you can do whatever you want, just do your best. And, instilled in me a work ethic and integrity, and it pushed me to achieve all that I thought I wanted to achieve. And then I think the gentleman I was working for, I was working for a company, and the gentleman was an elected official and actually encouraged me to look into public service, and work for the city and county of Denver. And I thought, okay, well, I'll try it, but we don't know. One of the best things I ever looked at, and he was absolutely right, the opportunity for growth and to be able to move across agencies and learn and actually see the impact of your work because you're in local government. And I don't think I'll ever forget that, because he is one of the reasons I'm still at the city today.
Isabella?
Just I'm gonna
Mom and
what
dad.
yeah, so mom and dad for sure, whether I liked it or not again. But they were very critical in my upbringing and my work ethic. So that's the first one. I'm actually gonna say I had a negative experience that shaped me as well. I'm not gonna name names, but there was a very upper person at a past job, someone at a high level, that when they found out I was accepting the job at the airport, they actually pulled me aside. And I'll never forget this, because this person still works at this company today. And she said to me, I heard you got a job at the airport. And I said, yes. And I was young and very nervous. And I was already struggling with the idea of being able to do this job and be good at it. And she said to me, I think you bit off more than you can chew. And I will never forget those words for the rest of my life, because that was the fire I needed to prove her wrong, and to prove anyone else who had those thoughts wrong. I mean, you tell me I can't do something and I'm going to say, watch me. And so that was exactly what happened. And I still think about that when I see this person. I see them about once a year at industry events. And I just always think, yep, I proved you wrong. So that was one thing that that impacted me. And I turned that negative experience into a positive one. And then I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that I had really good mentors at MSP Airport. I worked for very smart and capable people who believed in me and gave me the platform to exceed and excel at MSP, and really, really supported me. So I'm very fortunate that I had those type of leaders, and that they believed in me.
Jaimini?
Wow. Yeah, I feel like it's deja vu with with Isabella. Her whole background is very similar to what I faced too. I did start out with great work ethic from my parents as well. That actually helped me in I think that was very key to me in maintaining for much of my career, actually to this day, because I know that I can't be compromised. And so as long as I have the work ethic that I do, when I'm in difficult situations, I can say, you know what, I don't believe in this. And so I'm gonna back away. And so, and I, not to name any names either, I can share there are many circumstances where I've had not so stellar bosses that put me in probably some compromising, positions where I had to question whether or not the decision that I was making at the time was the right one. Whenever I'm kind of questioning myself, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. I always go with my gut, and to this day, it's like that's the best advice I could give myself. But just going through, my career, it's always been, where anything that somebody would say that I can't do, oh, you know what? Yeah, I think I can figure this out, right? I can do it. And it is having the support of the industry. I think one thing I've learned over the years is, the connections that I've gotten within the industry has made me who I am today. There's a lot of influence of folks that have impacted me. That have supported me as well outside of the bad bosses, but it helped frame me into what am I looking for and where I want to go. And shortly there was a stint in time when I went into consulting for myself, because that was scary. I was like, how do I get out of the job market and go into consulting? And so I tried it, and I said, okay, let me do this. And sure enough, the connections that I had in the industry helped, support me and saying, you know what, yeah, I need your help. I need your help. You have some level of expertise. And so I was able to kind of go in that direction, and it just made the foundation that I already had in my work ethic grow and get even more solid. And so and one of the people that did influence me was when I was going from the private sector to the public sector, that I hadn't even considered the airport side. And it wasn't until somebody from the airport, and that was the CFO at BWI, called me and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you about a position here. And I was like, really? and I really just, I was like, so what is the job? And they were just like, well, you would be in charge of all the commercial revenue that we do. And it didn't really, I didn't fathom it. It didn't really occur to me like what that entailed. I was like, I had kind of a concessions background. So I was like, but the more I got to talking about it, I'm just like, you know what, I think I can do this. And sure enough, I ended up getting hired. And, and it was one of those aha moments for me to say, you know what, it is something I can do. There's nothing out there that isn't something out of my reach that I can't figure out how to get to. And so I have to thank the community of folks in the industry, that I've just known over the years, that really have supported my efforts over the years and over time, and just acknowledge the fact that I was like, you can do stuff. You can learn this. You can learn this. And so, the mentors are wide and vast, but keeping that work ethic and keeping the foundation that I had has kind of led me to where I am today, and into the job that I absolutely love. So
Well, it's funny because as you guys are saying that, I'm keeping an eye, by the way, on the folks that are in the room. And there's a lot of familiar names, faces, oh, not faces, a lot of familiar names. So when you mention, like, this community of ours, that's for the most part is really giving,
yes.
which we're so blessed for it. And then Isabella, not to freak you out, but Eric Johnson is so he's listening. He can't wave back, but I'm sure he'll acknowledge you. But I see a lot of folks that we know, Eric, Deanna Zacharison's on, et cetera. So it helps to have this wonderful community with us, supporting us in so many ways. I did misspeak a little bit when I asked the question earlier about, we're shaped a lot by by people, and really also by our experiences. I want to ask each and every one of you just kind of like, what did you come across in your tenure? And usually we learn more from our losses than our wins, right? So what kind of situation you feel defined you, or like changed and shaped who you are during your career in this space? And we'll start with you, Isabella.
Yeah, I think there's several along the way, but I would have to say most recently, I hate the C word, you guys, but COVID. We were, I think as an industry, I don't even have to explain this. We were all just trying to figure it out, right? And I was working really, really hard and long hours. And I had stepped into the assistant director position in an interim position. And the team was so green and new that no one exactly knew what to do. And so I was taking on a lot of work, and I was not appropriately delegating. And I was absorbing a lot of the things that I should have asked help for. And I was also I had this horrible habit of, I didn't even notice I was doing it, of just like not setting boundaries for myself, not making the time for myself to eat lunch or go for a walk or just stop staring at my screen for a minute. And I would constantly be checking my emails on the weekends and on vacation and, at night. And I burnt out. I wasn't any good to myself. I wasn't good to the people around me. I realized that I needed to just take a few days, take a step back, and I did that. I went on my first solo vacation for 3 days. I've never done that before. And I was like, I don't want to be around people. I just need to like decompress and figure out what my game plan is. So I did that. And I made a promise to myself that when I come back to work, I am going to set aside an hour every day to just take care of myself, whether that's eat lunch or, go for a walk or whatever that is, just to get away from my computer or just, check the emails that I need to get to, whatever it is. And that I wouldn't check my emails at night or on vacation. And that I would do better with trusting others to help me and delegating. And so I made that a very conscious decision, and it turned everything around. It was the best decision I've ever made, but it got to that point where I was tapped out, and I wasn't good to myself. And so, that's a reminder to, you can work hard, you can still be good at your job, but sometimes you need to just reevaluate where you're at and where you need help, and figure out what those next steps are.
Oh, definitely. So Penny, for you, I know Isabella said COVID, the word COVID, which I think we're all probably going to start mentioning, and it's fine because that played a really unbelievable moment in our lives. I mean, it did in mine. So at Denver, you guys have grown phenomenal. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and just trying to keep up at breakneck speed. I imagine that during the course of that time, or maybe even prior, that you've probably come across some challenging moments that you've kind of said, this is going to shape me in a positive way.
Yes, what Isabella said. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, and you're absolutely right. We were in a position where the unknowns were huge across the board, personally and professionally. And so you're trying to manage not only an airport, make sure your staff is okay, not knowing what's around the corner, adjusting to working from home. And that's where I lost my boundaries because it was so easy just to be online all the time. But yeah, trying to balance all of that and then still make sure that not knowing when we were going to come out of it, but knowing we would we all be intact? And one of the things we really focused on was all of our small business partners. They were some of the ones that were hit the hardest. And so how do you make sure we're going to come out of this, but are they going to come with us? And what do we do now to make sure? So, but I think you learned a lot about your own self and what you need to do and how you need to balance. But you also learned, I think for us and for me personally, learning how to be nimble and being willing to make a decision without all the facts because we didn't know what was next. But trying to make the best decision you could with what you knew to make sure that not only we kept moving along, but the enterprise kept moving as well.
Oh, Jemmy?
So I think, I mean, I'm going to use a most recent example. COVID was bad. But obviously everybody knows the situation that happened with the aircraft collision with the helicopter that happened. And that was the first time that I experienced something in an airport that I was at since 9/11 happened. And so, it was a tragic event. But to see the vast number of people that came together to help each other and made me pause for a second to say, wow, this is mobilizing so fast, right? And we had to react so fast. And it happened naturally for our team to say, okay, what can we do? What can we help with? What can we help with? And it got to a point where, I mean, we were working round the clock. It was like almost a 24-hour thing that was happening with the press and everything that was going on. And we didn't have all the facts, and we weren't sure what to put out there from a social media standpoint and things like that. And so that was a profound moment for me, the most recent, because it really showed the resiliency of how quickly we have to react and how quickly we can come back. And in terms of like the community of the airport and how we work together, it kind of solidified for me a lot of what we do from a practice standpoint, and we have a lot of meetings and we talk about a lot of stuff. But once you see it actually happening, and once you see people reacting to it, it was unbelievable to see, and to see just how everybody wanted to pitch in, and including myself. I wanted to get in there to say, okay, how do I help? How do I help? And so it was a lot to take on, but that was a learning for even our team to say, and myself to say, we are resilient. We're very resilient in coming back. Something tragic will happen, but we can come back, and we can learn from it, and we can move forward from it. So that was a big moment in our time just recently that, it's unspeakable, but it's a way to say, we know what we're doing here. We want to make sure that the traveling public is safe, and we know how to do it.
Excellent. Well, I have a few more questions, unless I have some follow-ups. The one that I always like to ask folks, especially in these types of settings, we talk about mentors and things like that, experiences. But what are we doing, or you, et cetera, kind of to pay it forward in some ways, mentoring others? My original question, I have it set up here, is, how are you looking to mentor other young women in the space? I was, when I started in this industry, that there weren't many women in executive positions. In fact, there were probably a handful of women who were who led airports. There was, I don't know if anyone remembers, Gina Marie Lindsay from LAX, Deborah Ollie Flint, Elaine Roberts. They had told me one time that Elaine told me this, that they formed an informal women's group, kind of just like to help. Hey, I'm here for you, just someone to not just mentor, but to kind of like be a support person for you, for your career. And it was really informal, but they really helped one another. And it started to grow and continue. But Elaine was saying that's one way, because she's like, I didn't have that when I was coming up in my position. And so I was wondering, starting with you, Penny, just like, what are you looking to do in terms of like helping elevate other women to different various levels of positions? And I'm asking this because I'm a girl dad, and I'm a mama's boy, so I feel qualified to ask that for my own education as well. So what are you doing to help pay it forward?
Absolutely. I've had the privilege of being in a variety of roles where actually I might have been the only woman in the room and the only woman of color. And that's been a challenge, but it's also been a great lesson. So I believe I have a responsibility to mentor and to help others who want to, who have a desire to grow and want to learn more. So I am available. I have several of our staff who reach out to me. We meet, we talk, we laugh, we share. But I think it's mission critical, because I don't ever want to be the last woman in the room, and I don't want to be the only woman in the room. And so it's important that we extend that hand to others. And you're right, there have been times where I didn't always have those folks to turn to and say, how do I navigate this? And I don't want to see another younger person come up behind me and say, I didn't have anybody to ask.
That's true. How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I would tell you, I had a profound moment with Candace McGraw one day. She's such a rock in the industry, and such an advocate for women in the industry, and something told me someday, I just felt like I had to talk to her. And she was, kind of a trailblazer in for women, in across the industry, even before she had this current job, when she had the current job at Cincinnati. And so, just speaking with her and saying, sometimes I was the only person in the room. Yeah, I was the only woman in the room that, in a sea of men. And it is very male dominated industry, when it comes to airport and airport management. And so, but just giving her perspective of like, hey, you can do anything you want. You can be the person, you can be the voice in the room, and so with my current position, I mean, we don't have very many women on the executive team, but we do have a voice, and I have pay a lot of respect to our CEO who understands our voice and wants to hear us, and so I'm hoping to give the same kind of, voice to other women in the industry and other women that are in MWAA to say, you can get to this point and I want to help you get there. And whatever that is from, getting them exposure to, to the executive committee. I have everybody do presentations to the executive team, because I want them to have the exposure. I want people to know who they are in the organization and how their role is important in the organization. But a lot of that started with just a chat with Candace one day, and I was just like, she's really she's got her stuff together. She's just a great role model for anybody in the industry. I know she's retired, but it's like I feel like anytime I'm sure I can reach out to her, she can give me some pointers. But she was kind of a pivotal moment for me, and just coming up to her in one of the conferences and say, hey, can we just chat for a second? I just want to understand a little bit more about your background. So that to me, I want to be approachable for anyone. And so and I've had a few folks that have reached out to me to say, like, how do I get in this industry, or how do I get to where you are, and I'm like, well, let me help you, like these are the things that I went through, and these are some of the best practices that I've experienced. And so, so I want to be as helpful as I can to the industry as a whole. And so, so it's not just my team, but it's the folks in the industry that are looking to get to the positions that we're at.
Isabella?
This is all such great advice. And the funny thing is that I still see myself in that phase where I am relying on mentors and assistants. And it's a very weird shift of mentality when you start to notice that people are coming to you. And that was a light bulb moment for me. And I've had several women who have recently joined this industry reach out to me and want to talk, which is great. I've had daughters of friends, I've had younger friends all reach out, and I'm getting these requests more and more, and it's very humbling, and it's also a reminder to myself to always make myself available, and pay it forward. And so I just recently had a young woman stop me at an industry event. She was from Egypt, and she really, really loves the airport industry. And she said, is there any way that we can chat for, 5 minutes? And so her and I kind of pulled ourselves aside, and we ended up talking for over an hour. And I just saw so much of myself in her, and it just drew me to her even more. And it was one of those moments of, hey, I am always here, even though we live in different countries. I'm always here to be a lending ear, give you advice. And I think it's also our responsibility to help pave the way by creating opportunities. I have a very strong team of, mostly women actually on my team at MSP. And I want to ensure that whatever I'm doing as I'm excelling in my career, I'm also creating opportunities for them to excel in their careers as well. So that is something that I keep top of mind as I move forward.
Yeah, so I read this book on raising teens, which means my wife made me read this book on raising teens. And one of the examples that I was given was, when kids are learning to swim, they're on the wall and then they go out, they can swim back. And I guess we equate that to ourselves as being that wall. We're always there, no matter what, you can always come back. you know, if you need help or assurance or something like that. And I kind of see that in a lot of stories here. One thing that did come up, what would you tell your younger self? You know, what, like where you are now, if you can go back, and I know, Isabel, you mentioned, like, you know, we first get in this industry, it's so foreign to all of us, and there's so much to learn, and just the enormity of it. I don't think people really realize just how complex an airport is, and it's literally, we call it its own city. It really is. So, what would you tell your younger self, Penny, if there was something that you wanted to reassure your younger self?
A couple things. Don't be afraid to step out of the box and try something new. It
Yeah.
may be your best opportunity. And then find something that feeds your soul, whether it's in your career or in your personal life, but you need that. You need something that feeds your soul, and it will help balance out the rest of the things you do.
Perfect. Isabella?
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps, Penny. Oh, I love that. That's hard to follow. Well, I would say don't wait for the perfect conditions or opportunities because it's never going to be perfect and you're never going to be fully comfortable. Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky with $100 in his pocket. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter when she was a single mom on welfare. And Van Gogh painted Starry Night when he was in a mental asylum. Like none of these conditions were perfect, but look what they created. And so take the leap. You're never going to be ready, but trust yourself.
Jaimini?
Absolutely. I would say never say never. Because I think there's always the hesitation of like, well, I don't think this is going to work out. So no, I don't want to be interested in this, or no, if I could go back to my younger self, I would have said just never say never. I think there's always an opportunity. There's always even if it's a learning experience, if it's a new opportunity for a new job to learn something new, that's I think we all naturally grow when we learn something new, right? And if you're, and I always tell people, like, if you're in a job for a really long time and you're kind of doing the same thing, ask yourself if you're growing. Are you growing? And this is the way to grow. It's just never say never. Whatever the opportunity might present itself in front of you, take the chance. I mean, the worst that can happen is, okay, I can always go back to what I was doing, right? Or but to go forward, you got to take those chances and go through those doors. And so that's probably best advice I would give my younger self and anybody else out there.
Well, I have my last two questions, and these hopefully are fun ones. So I definitely want to, I'm springing this on each and every one of you. If there was to be a movie based on your life, who would play you? And I'm gonna go, since Jaimini raised her hand, I'm gonna go with Jaimini first.
Um, I don't know. It's kind of like a devil wears Prada moment uh, throughout my life. I think that's probably the best thing, best description. I could relate so much with that movie, and since my nieces keep telling me that they remind me of Anne Hathaway, that's probably the movie that I would say best describes kind of my life of like, hey, I'm going to try to do this, and then get steamrolled, and then you learn from it, you learn everything you can, and then you rise above it, right? So that's probably the best description of that I can think of.
How about you, Penny? What's a movie you think that would either someone who would play you in your movie of your life, or something that you could kind of relate to from that standpoint?
Um, the movie doesn't come to me, but I think the person that would play me, it would be one of two people. It would be Jill Scott or Angela Bassett.
Ooh, Angela Bassett, sign her up. I didn't say that too loud, but yeah, definitely Angela Bassett's a good one. Isabella, how'd you get your groove back?
Well, no one can win with this question. I'm gonna defer.
No, no,
Let's
no, no,
ask
no, 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 no.
the audience.
You can't pass. No, 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 there's no pass.
I really, oh God, I feel like this is such a trap. Oh gosh.
Go with your gut, Isabella.
Well, how about I go with the people that I am told I look like me all the time, which I do not agree with, by the way, everyone. I do not agree with it. Uh, there's the woman who sings for Frozen, I think.
Oh,
Who's the
Idina
singer?
Menzel.
Adelia, yes.
I get that. In my younger years, I used to constantly get Penelope Cruz, but I do not look like her, so I don't know where that came from. Apparently, I'm a fiery Latina. I'm not though, so I don't know. I'll take it.
Oh, perfect, perfect. And my last question, and this is very, very, and I'd really like you guys to kind of share this because I think as Isabella mentioned it earlier with coming through COVID and the burnout and everything that we're going through, would love for you guys to kind of share what do you do to kind of unwind, to relax, to detach. Um, I don't know who mentioned it on here, Gemini, with your recent experience, this is a near 24-hour environment. Something's always going on. And the one, I think it was, I'm actually going to say Joe Anderson, for those who remember Joe Anderson, once told me, said that, there's, I think it's only like casinos and hospitals are the only other environments that are like near 24 hours, like an airport. And so you're constantly on, you're always tethered, like you said, you're tied to your phone, looking at emails. You're probably getting alerts if there's a crisis of some kind. But there has to be a moment where you are able to detach. And what is that for you? How do you do it? And, because again, I'm taking notes because I'd like to learn as well. And I'll start with you, Penny.
I read, I shop, and I travel. And maybe in that order.
I was going to say, are they all related? Are you just reading about travel so you can go and shop? Is that how it is?
At times.
Okay, so then my follow-up to that is then what would you read and what would you recommend?
Um, I have just started. There are several people around me who are reading the book, Let Them. And so I am just starting that. So I'm not sure yet, but I just am diving into that.
All right, so Denver has a book club. I like that. How about you, Isabella? How do you unwind?
I'm a little bit of a nerd. I like a good puzzle. So I am currently, my dining table is covered with a puzzle that's been there for about 3 weeks. I probably spend about 5 minutes a day just staring at it and then maybe moving a piece or two around. And so it takes me a while, but I love it. I love a good cup of coffee in the morning and just some good music and letting the light kind of, I bask in the sunlight and work on this puzzle. Other than that, I love going on walks with my dog. He relaxes me and traveling. I would be remiss to say that I also do love to shop, and I think Eric online knows I have a little bit of a shoe problem, so I'm working on it. I'm
So,
working on it. I'm in rehab.
so Penny and Isabella have a retail therapy. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But I want to, so it's funny you mentioned the puzzle thing. I guess that's kind of emblematic of what we're trying to do in terms of like, we're trying to see where the pieces fit. The picture might not be so clear, but we're slowly putting it together. At least that's my explanation for you, Isabella. Nerd. All right, Gemini, how about you?
Well, people that know me in the industry for as long as they've known me, I always had a hard time detaching. I just could not put my phone down. I would I was checking emails and checking texts, and even if I go on vacation, I was doing that too. And I really had to learn. So, as my career has progressed and the jobs that I've had, I've slowly started to set the time aside over the weekend. So now I can say, and some people are gonna some of my staff will say, well, I don't think you totally detached, but there are times now where I have made my family a huge priority in terms of, things that I want to do, on the weekends. I get to spend time with my nieces and my great nieces, and I have an aging mother. I don't know how many people have aging parents. And so I want to be able to take care of her. So I had to detach to be able to focus. And so now I'm very, very good on, I'm not going to respond to emails unless I absolutely have to, but I try not to check my emails. It's a habit that I've had over the years, is having two phones. So I turn off one phone when it's the work phone. And so, that's kept me kind of that separated and compartmentalizing everything. But now I can actually have where the weekends I can spend, not worrying about work and knowing, hey, Monday it's going to be there. I don't have to worry about it. I can answer it then. And so I've been able to slowly detach, and I too like puzzles, Isabella. I love them too, but I also love my wonderful glasses of wine. And so that the weekend gives me an opportunity to try new ones. And I get together with friends and family to be able to try some too. So detaching has been difficult over the years, but I've now mastered it.
Yeah, I remember some of the timestamps in some of those emails in your previous life, Jaimini.
Exactly.
I took note of that. So perfect. Well, ladies, thank you so much for this. This has been really enlightening. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope everyone in the audience has as well. Just a reminder, this was recorded, and we're going to make sure that this is posted on our YouTube channel and share it through our social channels. So if you want to definitely check it out, if you weren't able to, please share it. If you know someone who probably missed this for whatever reason. Like I said, we had about 70 or so people on. But there were a lot more who actually were registered to attend. So this was truly enlightening. I want to thank Penny, Isabella, and Jaimini for doing this. Thank everyone that's in the audience for participating. And before I send you off on your weekend, please, if you haven't already, register for the annual Airport Business Conference. You can go on our line for that. And lastly, wherever you are, be safe, stay warm. I know I'll be warm. And we will hopefully see you all soon. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Big thank you to you, Ramon. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.